Hello, my creative collective. So, this is your daily reading for April 7th, and I'm super pumped to dive right in. So, let's do this, shall we? All right, so I would like to invite the angels, my guardian angels, my spirit guides, protectors, teachers, and their healing energy to this space. And I ask that it is a safe and brave space that allows for the fullest expression of our light, humanity, ascension, and healing. All right, let's dive in. Let me move this over here. Okay, so we're going to start with the Hero's Journey Dream Oracle. Spirit, what messages do you have for my creative collective for April 7th, please? April 7th. Ooh. The Return. Own your mastery. Own your mastery. I'm just going to move this here. Okay. And Spirit, can you give me additional messages here for April 7th, please? April 7th. The Call. Honor the whisper of your soul. A lot of journeying here. You could be doing that in dreams a lot. You could also just be doing that through meditation. Astral traveling, astral projecting, that kind of thing, remote viewing maybe. Build in breaks, saunter slowly. I love this energy. This is like the energy of pauses, of, not losing yourself in fun, but remembering to make it fun every now and again, because sometimes the work can be a little bit blah, right? And not blah because the work itself isn't good or something that is enriching for you. Sometimes it happens because it's just like the way that we get stuck in a rut, either creatively or in our work, and it just doesn't pull at us quite the same because our cup is it's impossible for it to run over, to overflow, right? Because we've filled it with things that don't necessarily work for us, right? We thought, oh, we'll fill our cup, but we'll fill it with anything that's available. You can't drink pebbles. But sometimes we fill the cup just so that we can say it's full. And I'm quite type A, so that is that is like the definition of busy work, right? We do things that are fulfilling, but that don't always work in a way that makes sense, right? That's why I've been kind of slow to, I'll release content on here in terms of tarot, but there's things happening behind the scenes in terms of other content. It's not worth it just to throw it out there to say that it's finally out there, right? It's sometimes you have to let it simmer, right? So there's something to be said for that. But I think this like build in breaks. I think pacing yourself with whatever you're doing or working on today and this week it's going to be really important to give yourself that time, to give yourself some kind of time. And I think the reflection period as well helps us to understand others filling our cup. So I'm working through the Libra full moon videos this week, and I'm getting a lot of this energy around that. So stay tuned for those. It's very exciting. There's great energy around it. That's for sure. Big energy. But excellent energy nonetheless. So let's dive in, shall we? Let's do the rest of the reading. So these, I think, are your kind of overarching messages. And I'm almost getting that, like, there's this way that you're in between. Like, you feel like you're in this, it's almost like a liminal space that you're in. It's like a liminal space that you're in. And if you watch tonight's Alchemical Book Club, it's releasing tonight. And it is, the book talks about liminality and the liminal space in between. So if this sounds at all intriguing to you, this is possibly a way that you are beginning to hold space for yourself. Or you're just doing that in a way that is new and perhaps more fulfilling and enriching for you. So let's dive in, shall we? I'm going to use the Muse Tarot here. Whoa, a little bit slippery. Let's do that. Thank you so much, Spirit. For people who are wondering what the F I just did, that is what we do to clear energies from the deck or just pull out stale energy if it's been sitting out. It's my process, and I'll do what I want to. That's how it clears for me. So I keep stones on them that tend to have vibrations that are a little bit higher and pull negative energy in that way, but we will get right down to it here, shall we? Okay. Spirit, can I get some hero's journey, this kind of ascension journey that we're on, this hero's journey through today and this week, please, and thank you so much. This custom spread that was downloaded. to my brain from spirit. I feel we're all quite like computers in this particular point in time, because I feel like I'm reading so many, not comments necessarily on this channel, but just other readers and other folks on YouTube who work in and with energy, who talk about, between 2 to 4 a.m. is like the magic hour. And that's sort of like when my like cosmic computer does all of its updating. And sometimes I get woken up, and that's what happened with this spread. So that's why I was just on that tangent there. So my software was updating. So Spirit, can I get some messages here? 4 of Wands, collaboration perhaps. Ace of Wands. 4 of Cups. You want that? This came out in the reverse. I almost feel like it could be like it could go either way in terms of it. So I'm going to leave it like that, just so that, because I feel like there's some kind of decision coming, or that you've made already. 6 of Wands. 9 of Swords. Temperance. We got some Sage energy here. I don't know why I say it like that. How very Michigan of you. Oh, Sagittarius. Anyway. Okay. Spirit, can I get some messages here? Oh, okay. That's pretty interesting. A little Knight of Cups, 10 of Cups. By 10 of Cups, I mean 10 of Pentacles. And Magician energy. Beautiful. And the Wheel. Woo. And the Ace of Wands on the bottom. Okay. Or Page of Wands, I should say. Okay, so we're starting at the 4 of Wands, this tends to be new contracts, new energies coming in. In the traditional Rider-Waite, this is also kind of considered the 1111 Twin Flame card. So if this is mission related for you, that could be a sign for you that it is. What I'm getting from this, though, is that you're kind of working together with folks. And this, I think, is could also be you connecting with your guides more. So this is something that could be, I'm seeing the 6 of Wands down here tells me that it's something to do with like public facing work. So I think that there's the potential, at the very least, there's the potential for this to be related to some kind of creative endeavor that is more public facing in nature. This is also the Victory card, but the way I see this is like kind of your name in lights idea, right? And I'm wondering, I'm thinking about, what I'm wondering here is how does that work, Spirit? My guide was just like, exactly like it should. Okay, so what my question was around this sort of inward facing energy that's kind of scattered throughout this reading, and then this sort of public one, but then this kind of way that I figured you might have been working more with your guides simply because of the meditative state that the women are in, or I should say the folks are in this card. There could be a way that you're kind of breaking away from norms and things that have been surrounding creative collaborations and the way that you've worked with others before. So it could be that you're kind of seeing all of this, you're seeing it come together in ways that you may not have necessarily expected. And the reason why I kind of got the breaking away from folks' energy is the Ace of Wands showing up in reverse, right? It came out of the deck in reverse, and I put it upright, and then I really felt the energy just pulling back downwards. Like I just felt this spiral in my gut just say, it needs to go around. And so what I'm seeing from this is that there's a way that it, perhaps some of the ways that you've worked with others in the past has left you feeling a little bit empty, and empty not as in devoid of value or, bankrupted emotionally. It's nothing that dramatic or drastic, but I think it's just that you're bored with the ideas that you have in the places that you've been, which is where the inward facing journey is going to me. And on one hand, because when we get into these places of boredom, For me at least, it's been very productive to ask, am I bored because this external facing situation or, landscape, as it were, that I'm seeing, is it because of the external thing, or is it something in me that has shifted and I have not looked outward in a way that aligns my view with what I want to see, as opposed to just looking at what's there and being like, oh, screw that. Ugh. Like, is there a way that I haven't done the work to align and realign those priorities as they've shifted, right? I think about it related to a workplace, for example, where if you feel bored, you can start to show up and be a really miserable person every day, but it's not going to change the job itself or the work that you do. So you have choices, right? You can change yourself and realign those expectations and articulate what's making you feel that way to change the environment, because you are empowered to exact some control. We can't control people and we can't control the physical spaces or like the job itself, but like, is there something that you need to shift in that? This is what I'm seeing here. Is it something that you need to change regarding that kind of energy? And if not, then is it that the job itself that you do needs to change? 11:11 on the time. And if the job itself needs to change, then do that. Then go towards something else so that your energy isn't in this like resentful place. And I think about contempt and disgust. And those are the two energies that start to crop up when we think of... I was going to say eclipses, but that's not. So there could be something around the eclipse where something is going to be either impossible to ignore that's going on internally for you. Around the 30th is the partial solar eclipse in Taurus, which is very work-oriented and value-oriented. But I think that there's a way that we're looking inward, and I think there's an imbalance because we're maybe looking at external circumstances as being the at fault, when it's something that we need to look inward on or about more so. And I think that is what is going to lead to this feeling of more success. And it's funny how things work like this, right? 12:12 is just on the time. It's funny how things work like this because we think that, I talked about this last Mother's Day with, I had a rare photo of my mom because she was always behind the camera, very much like I am with my photography. I did get this artistic flair from somewhere, but I talked about how, it's wild that forgiveness doesn't change external circumstances. Forgiveness changes us, and that changes our response ability. Like responsibility in one way, but like response dash ability, like our ability to respond to the world around us. Because when we forgive people in our lives for the things that they were and the things that they weren't, and we usually end up leaning more towards the things that they weren't, right? My mom had so many things that she gave. There were a lot of things that she couldn't, and I don't fault her for that. I had to go through a very, a process and, working with professionals along the way in my 20s and all of that jazz. But it's like you get to a place of forgiving and true forgiveness. You have this perspective where you're like, wow, they didn't change. Who they are became more accessible to me because I changed, because I let go, because I released the 10 of Wands in the process. And I almost feel like there's that internal shift that's happening where it's not even about like, I'm going to release things and then I'm going to be fixed. It's like you're starting to see that you've already released stuff, but your perception has been kind of skewed in terms of what your expectations of situations are now, right? We don't release things and then suddenly everything just works. Sometimes that's how manifestations come to us, but it's also just that we're able to see better. We get better clarity. And I think that's what's happening here is that what feels like success, they talk about overnight success, and overnight success is really just like, it's like, I can't remember the quote, but it's like how it's basically been 5 to 6, sometimes 10 years of work. And then all of a sudden it's like this overnight thing and people are like, oh my gosh, you're so gifted. It's like, I was doing all of this work when no one gave a damn about what I was doing. And I loved it. And that's why I did it. But now people are suddenly intrigued and they're like, how did you get these skills? And it's like, well, I wrote on a blog in 2012 that no one cared about. And I loved it. I mean, people did care. I had like a couple hundred views per week, I think, on the blog. And like I was writing about these topics, spirituality, well-being, all this stuff, before this moment. And I took all of those skills into this place. So it seems like I've been doing this forever, or like there's some kind of mystery. And it's just that, no, this has been something that has happened for a very long time. And that's not to talk about my skills, but to talk about the process, so that you can see yourself in this possibly, right? Where you could be doing something for 10 years and then all of a sudden it just comes to fruition, because it's like breathing, because you've been doing it in another iteration, which is also, side note, a sign of spiritual path, like where you're just like a tick off, like I was really reminded of this. I talk about this channel a lot because of how influential it's been for myself, but Soulful Revolution, and just how you're like, she talks a lot about the North Node and spiritual path and things that are like, what are you here to offer the world, right? You don't have to offer anything sometimes, like that. It's not a way of justifying productivity or toxic extraction or extractive practices related to capitalism. This is more so, what is it that makes you happy, so that when you put your head on the pillow at night, you can think about your day and you're like, man, I gave it everything I had and I loved what I did today. Even if there were stresses or struggles. Like yesterday was one of those days where I was just like, oh, it was like, I should say 2 days ago, because I'm recording this on April 6th, but like yesterday, so April 5th it was like one thing after another, after another, after another. And it wasn't even a situation where like I was just frustrated by the end of the day, but I realized I was getting ready for bed and I was, brushing my teeth and doing all of those like wind down things. And I thought to myself, like, even this day, as stressful as it wasn't as stressful, because I know that tomorrow morning I'm going to be able to wake up and do this. Tomorrow morning I'm going to be able to wake up and plan content and reach out to people for, reaching out to folks for like copyright permissions and things like that, for pushing ideas forward, like all of these things that I'm doing. And it's like, yeah, I can handle those tougher days because of this. And it's such a small thing. I know some people may not take me seriously that much anymore because I do this. Like I've seen some people talk about, oh, wellness is toxic and all this stuff. And it's like, that might be true, but where do you turn to when you're in your darker moments? Wellness. Where do you turn to when you need transformation? Wellness, right? So it's sort of balancing all of these perspectives. But back to this point here is understanding that there's this journey that you're going on that people may say like, oh, this has happened overnight. And, it's kind of, there might be a way that you're a little bit bored with the situation. And the boredom, I think, is coming from the fact that something has taken a long time to arrive. Something has taken a long time to arrive, right? Because we have this build-in breaks card, which tells me that it's like this journey energy, right? The return is where you started. So it's like things are coming full circle now. Things are coming full circle. And then this is your new call to adventure. Like something is happening that's like you're being called upon, right? You're being called on. And I think that there's a way that you're recognizing that the way that you've done things related to connections, collaborations, and just the way that you've worked with others before isn't necessarily something you can take with you into the next step or next stage, 1818 on the time. And this 6 of Wands and 9 of Swords, to me, says that there's a way that people's reactions to your direction or where you're going or what you want to do or the success that you experience as a result of that, it may throw you in your head. I say that because sometimes people say, overnight successes and people who are successful at what they do, well, they've been doing it for a long time, or, there's always that period where you do it and nobody cares, and there's so much freedom in that, right? My subscriber count on this channel is growing, but at the same time, it's not like, it's still fun enough for me because it feels like such an intimate, smaller community. So that's really a sweet spot, because then you get into this place where you have a lot more eyes on you, and that is eventually the goal. But sometimes people can see that shift in things like view count or whatnot, and they get thrown into this imposter syndrome place where they're like, ooh, I don't know. I'm not sure. And not sure, it's not necessarily just about deserving, but it's almost like, ooh, now all the eyes are on me and there's expectations that weren't there before. It's not about even consistency. It's for me, when things like this happen, and it's happened in various forms before, it always tells me that there's like an ending and a new beginning happening, right? But when I see this when I feel energy like this, that I'm seeing from these cards and seeing here and in my heart, is that there's a way that it can kind of mess with your manifesting power. And I'm seeing that with the Magician here. And these are kind of, I'm seeing this as sort of the Ace of Wands in reverse, and then the Four of Cups. So I'll show you this card as well, because I showed you the others. Four of Cups. It's almost a way that you haven't necessarily been as aware of your feelings as you've been aware of what you want to manifest in the world, and the ideas that kind of just, oh, sorry, I hit the microphone here. And the ideas that you just want to run with. 2020 on the time. So it's like, yeah, 2020 vision. Maybe that's related to 2020 vision for you. But the way that this is looking is that there is balance here, right? There is balance here. And the reason why I'm almost getting this pull, like the way that this spread came to me was that this is sort of the minor inconveniences on the journey that can become a tower if they're not addressed. So for me, this is about you understanding that when you start to, when people start to, in meetings, people might agree with you, or people might look to you for ideas. People might call on you in workplace environments. They might call on you with creative projects. They might seek you out for your opinion because they trust it. Even though this is all related to tarot, there are other skills that I have that if people were to call on me, I would have to trust that those were worthy of seeing the light of day too, right? So it's something along those lines here where for you, I think that there's something that is... there's going to be an attention on something that's going to kind of send you into this doubtful place, or it's going to send you on a mental, like a little bit of a trip, not an ego trip. I don't see those energies here necessarily, but it's almost like this self-doubt energy. Like you're anxious. You're anxious almost because you're not letting the energy flow through, right? It just sort of, the buck stops here at your mind. And I think that it's sort of like reminding yourself reminding yourself that it's okay to feel stuff in order, and not just feel stuff broadly. Like yesterday's reading, like the daily creative reading, was the Ocean of Emotion, which I enjoy the idea of because of all the places you can take that creatively. But what I'm seeing here is that there's almost this way that you've been bored emotionally because you haven't really been paying attention to the right energies. And I think that that'll unlock a chunk of I want to say success, but also just freedom for you in your work and in what you're doing. And I think that there's a way that when you get there, that's once you start to see signs of that success aligning with you, you're going to be thrown into your head a little bit. But Temperance, so Sag energy is here balancing this. It's balancing this, I'm seeing. And I think that the victory is that you go from this kind of Four of Cups into like the major ordeal is a Knight of Cups. So for me, in this kind of hero's journey spread, this could be a person. So this could be a water sign. And it's not that you're doing battle with this person and like head to head, like with them. But what I'm seeing is that this is more so an energy that you're kind of harnessing within you. So you go from this Four of Cups and being uncertain and unaware, right? Like it's almost like being unable to even recognize and identify your emotional wants. With this Ace of Wands in reverse, I think about it, the emotions behind why you want what you want, right? And I think that it's almost like this would be sort of a vignette of you in projects already because of the Four of Wands here. So this is like contracts. This is like that seventh house energy, long term. Like these are long term things that have been going on or that are in your life. And then this Knight of Cups tells me that you are in a kind of, you're in a place where now you understand what you want and you're able to integrate it with things that are important to you, right? You're able to integrate these two different elemental energies, I guess, as they show up in the card, in the cards, I should say. And you're able to really start to move forward on things. And that is it sort of, it all comes together in the Magician card here where you're like moving forward. You're moving forward on these manifestations, I think. And then we go into the Wheel, which is, the Wheel is Jupiter energy and the Page of Wands is here. So it's almost like this expansion, this expanded sense of what's possible, this expanded creative power and creative potential. It's like this I get this expansive energy, which is really beautiful. It could just be the Sag in my chart being like, wee, when it comes to Jupiter energy. But what I'm seeing here for you is this way that you've, this way that the journey, the kind of hero's journey today to be mindful of is not the one that is about other people, even though we started at the Four of Wands and it looks like it. I think that this is more about you understanding what you want and why. And then it sort of balances things out in a pretty profound way, right? Like the reading is bookended by Jupiter energy, which is Piscean energy, but also Saturn. I wanted to say Saturn, but Sagittarius. So ninth house energy, like what you believe about the world, right? Your personal approach to success, your personal beliefs about creativity and relationships and love and all of these things in between. So these like personal beliefs are like, oh yeah. And that's like, it's giving you greater access to what your passions are actually with, as opposed to this somewhat conflicted idea energy here of moving things forward and a disconnect, perhaps because there was a confusion between what you thought people might want you to want and what you actually want. And then it's like, once that balance comes into play, you're off to the races, right? You're off to the races. And that may be a tension because this to me is sort of that ordeal, the major battle, like the climactic scene in a movie. I think that this is connected to that energy because the Knight of Cups is an energy of forward movement, one, but two, it's also a sign of, it's a sign of things to come. And to me, it's a bit of a battle because it's like giving yourself the ability to recognize that. Horses to me represent freedom, right? And I just, when you see, I haven't seen horses in the wild per se, but I have driven on some rural roads just going for drives when, and you see a horse galloping through a field on a farm or elsewhere, like if they're, at a boarding farm or whatnot. But it's such a beautiful thing. You can feel the freedom coming from them. And I almost feel like you haven't felt so free with your emotions, like you haven't felt so free with your ability to ground them in something real. But this is as much a celebration card. To me, this is like the sort of collaborative work card in terms of energies and connecting with other people. And then this is sort of the grounding it in a way that allows other people to celebrate with you. Like there's different forms of public recognition and like interaction with others here. So like there's the Six of Wands, which is like public success that's kind of all about you, this victory where all eyes are on you, and it's like a little bit of like celeb status idea. And then this one is the one that I feel really comfortable with, like that. Just to think about it this way is like the Ten of Pentacles to me is like a family barbecue where everyone gets together and, people are like, oh, bring your, I want Granny's potato salad. I want my Aunt Gaby's, coleslaw and apple and raisin salad. Can you bring that? And it's like, there's so much value invested in knowing all of the people that are coming to celebrate with you. So it's like, this is the kind of gathering and success that I really like in this particular spread for you, my daily creatives, because this is really about working on things quietly. It's also about like that sort of set off to the side collaborative space where you're coming together and making a decision about something. And I think that for me, I like this Ten of Pentacles energy going into the Magician because this is the energy that you're manifesting from now. This is also, so we think about Ten of Pentacles as sort of an ending to a new beginning coming, right? Like I think about this as like someone retiring after a really great career, and then they're in like a new space for the Magician, which could be where you're at. But for me, this is like, it's so much different starting from experience versus starting from scratch. And I think that this is the energy that's really coming through. So wherever you are in your career or this journey, I think that there's a sense of like, when you know how you feel, it's not that you didn't know how you felt necessarily because you were disconnected from feeling, but kind of because you were in this weird place of listening to different kinds of what was most important, like what you valued, right? And the wheel kind of marks an end to the way that you did things before that didn't serve you in the greatest way, like maybe not in your best good. And then the Ace of Wands is that fresh inspiration that you needed to keep moving forward. Like this to me, or Page of Wands, sorry. This is like you're moving forward and working with the right people. you're moving forward and working with people who are, and the right people, not meaning that people are fundamentally right and wrong or anything like that. This is more so about recognizing the 10 of Pentacles of it, right? Who do you want at that barbecue and why? Right? Who would you want to have around for a really relaxing weekend, right? What would you want to do? Why? Right? Thinking about those things. And that's just a small example, but yeah, so it's really connecting with this sort of inspired energy moving forward. And I think that you're clearer. I think this is sort of an inspired clarity, Page of Wands with the wheel. It's like an inspired clarity that, and also a reminder that with the Magician here too, what you focus on expands. What you focus on expands. So making sure that you're doing that in a spirit and in an energy that is in your highest good. And I think the celebration and gathering energy here is about this build-in breaks, right? Build-in breaks. Yeah. And starting at the 10 of Pentacles, like the 10 of Pentacles here with that idea of like you're starting from experience. It's sort of like the return, right? You're returning back. You have a lot of experience with you already. And then boom, there's another call coming in. And that is this Page of Inspirations, I think. So Page of Wands, and the Ace of Wands was in reverse because the aces to me are more about you and internal processes, like you and the you spirit and your idea, you spirit and your emotions, you spirit and an offer. Like these are, or like values or things that are important to you. Sometimes, I mean, in this energy, I'm reading it to be the case where this Ace of Wands was more about how you're processing your interactions with other people emotionally and the ideas that they have, your creative integration, all of that stuff. So you're getting this new call here, this Page of Wands, right? And you're able to run with things in a way that you couldn't necessarily before, not because it wasn't the right offers, but because you weren't necessarily in the right frame of mind and also in the right heart space, right? Because when you come to things with a healed heart and healed patterns, I've been thinking about this week where it's like I was thinking a lot about, the reason why I started to do this work in part was because I thought, you know what, I love the idea. And it's not even the idea. Like for me, I see doing something to move things forward for others and make something better for others with my time on this planet here, as that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what I'm supposed to do here. That's for me, very strong from day one. I think when I was 16, it just and it hasn't stopped since. And I think that for me, I found different ways to do that in different elements of work. 3-2-3-2 is just on the time. And what I come to understand about the way that energy has flowed is that you pick certain things that are just a tack or two off from where you're supposed to be. And you recognize it because, this is going to sound like weird possibly, but the way I was thinking about it yesterday was that this work doesn't necessarily, thinking about nonprofit work that I used to do more heavily, it just didn't seem to love me back quite as much as I loved it. I liked helping in the community and I loved organizing and doing all of those things, but I felt like there were so many gatekeepers and just a lot of politics and a lot of things that were not, that were so off path for helping others, right? And it became for some people about helping themselves as opposed to actually putting something of value in for the community. And it just, you get to a point where, and some politicians that I've experienced are incredibly narcissistic, 3-3-3-3 on the time. And so I've had politicians, this is quite a few years ago now, pre-2018, take swipes at me publicly because I didn't agree with them behind closed doors. And their goal is to make their opponents look stupid, right? They personally attacked people they didn't like who were running for office that their friends were. So it's that kind of energy where it's yikes. I was like, this is way off for me. This is way off for me. And so I think that there's a place where it's you're reaching that point with either work that you're doing or you're coming to an understanding of what success means to you, right? Which is a beautiful place to be, because I started this up because I thought, you know what, screw it, just do it. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I was talking to somebody about how I had, got a microphone in 2021, and it was, super duper on sale. It was the right time. There was one of those moments where you're like, this is the right time. Not that things have to not be on sale. It's what you lean into, right? Those little signs. And they were like, wait, so you have a light and you have a microphone and you're not doing this yet. And I was like, no, I'm not. So it's things like that where it's like I think that you're integrating these little steps and these little calls. Like, this is the call, right? It's the call that it's like the universe is ringing you up right now. And I think that you're answering based on the Magician, the Wheel, and the Page of Wands. So for me, this is really exciting to see. I'm going to dig into a little bit more here and just kind of see where this goes. But it's important so this is something that just came to mind as well. In terms of all of this stuff, it's really important to build in breaks because that improves your manifesting power. That helps you, and I saw this on the split, and that's why it came to mind, is the Magician and the Two of Pentacles. It's like when you're balancing priorities and you're trying to understand what to prioritize and what not to, building in breaks allows you time to reflect, which is exceptionally important. It is so important to be able to pull back, my friends, and take a look at what you're doing and why it's important to you. Because sometimes we can get on treadmills where we, things adjacent to our most important values. So like, it's almost, the way I see it is like there's like a value tree, right? Like you have the most important values, and it's almost like an NCAA like March Madness chart, right? Like you have like the middle one, and that's like the biggest value that it's overarching in your life. And then you have these little subsidiary ones that have like that little line, and then it goes into one, and then it goes into another. And I think that values work like that too, where the ones that are in that four, those outer ones, are the ones that are adjacent to, that are part of the main one, but they can sometimes throw us off track because we prioritize those ones instead of the main ones. And I think that's where we can get off track with where we're supposed to be with, what we want to do and how we feel most alive in our lives, how we feel most impassioned for what we're doing, and other people too, right? So I'm going to keep diving in because I feel like there's a lot coming through, but yeah. Spirit, can I get some messages here for April 7th from my daily creatives? Thank you so much. Yeah, Four of Wands again. So, I mean, if this is about a relationship, this is you reevaluating what you value in relationships. And then I feel like there is going to be something wonderful in terms of commitment coming in, because the Hierophant is here. This is Taurian energy. So it could be in terms of timing. It could be related to going into Taurus on April 19th. Right? But this is also contracts. This is weddings. This is great energy. So no matter how you slice it, whatever this is about for you, I feel like this is about you finding something long-term where you can really plant seeds, and that you are calling in through your new perspective, or a perspective that isn't necessarily new to you, but the way that you're taking it up in a daily way, the way that you're taking it up in an everyday way is changing. And that's something that's really refreshing in your energy here that I'm feeling. So yep, Six of Pentacles, clarifying the Ten of Pentacles and Knight of Cups and the Four of Wands. I typically read this as balance, but just with the Two of Pentacles on the bottom, what I'm seeing here is I'm hearing the difference between management and leadership. What? Okay, so if this is a career reading for you or something related to work, there's like a difference between management and leadership. And I think you're understanding how to bring those things into balance when it comes to, like, management is the sort of, both can be in one position, right? You can manage something and be a leader at the same time, but the skills that they draw on tend to be different. Leadership is inspiring people to do something. It is developing people. Management is taking these moving parts within an organization or project or on a creative work that you're doing and bringing those to the fruition of an outcome that you've decided before, right? So you're working towards all of these things, and presto, they're all there. And the Six of Pentacles tells me that there's this way, like, it's like you're understanding this difference, and it's helping to clarify what you want. Now, this can also be like the difference between management and leadership in a relationship, which kind of gets like, ugh, it feels weird to talk about it like that. But if I were to think about it as applying to that, it would be the difference between, micromanaging someone and letting them spread their wings. And, there's an element of freedom, right? Like I have a chunk of Aquarius and my Venus is in Sag. So it's like the freedom piece, like that's a big deal for me, right? Like I need a place, be it with creative projects or, in relationships specifically. And, even in friendships, like I thrive in friendships that I don't have to be in every single day, right? Like I can talk to folks once a week or once every 2 weeks and it's connected still, right? Because my priorities and what I value are those relationships and those connections or those projects. So even, even managers that I've had have recognized that there's something about being a self-starter in there, right? But in relationships, this is also about being willing to connect and being consistent enough. With the Pentacle energy, I'm getting consistency, right? Being consistent enough in who you are that your person feels safe enough to have those wings be present and have that freedom be present. Because I know for me, there's been times where, some people who are either indecisive, there's like this ambivalence that people bring, like, I'm not really sure if I want that. And it makes it so that there's this unsteadiness that just characterizes a relationship or it characterizes a situation. And it's kind of a form of harm that you do if you leave someone in this undecided state, or you're never really sure about how you feel, because then what ends up happening is it makes it hard for them to know that you're a safe person, or that, a particular space that you're in is safe. It's hard for you to read that off of a situation if things are constantly changing in terms of meaning and value, because the goalposts are changing. And when the goalposts change, it means that it's really hard for you it's not about being right, but it's about being secure and that stability. I don't know where all this is coming from, but that's where I'm seeing this difference in like management and leadership and micromanagement in relationships and letting people be, right? Letting people be free. And sometimes freedom can be a terrifying thing if you're used to relationships where being in control in a way, it just yuck. It's such a gross, and it's not gross because it's gross. Like some people thrive like this. Some people thrive in those conditions. Like I said, my experiences and my placements probably have something to do with me being like, it's not about loving people at a distance or less either, right? It is entirely about letting people soar and being like, you are so attractive when you are in your freedom. When you are in your freedom. Right? It's being able to see that and to experience a kind of security with people and in projects where you have that freedom. Blank canvases can be really intimidating to us sometimes when we're uncomfortable with that feeling of freedom. I thrive in it though. I love it. There's nothing more exciting to me than that. Again, provided that there's communication, and communication in projects can look like clients telling you what they expect, right? It can be adequate creative direction. It can be creative briefs where people are telling you what they need and want, right? It's clarity of expectations that makes freedom possible. And also just this sense of security, right? Like if there's any kind of disagreement, or if we're talking about a personal relationship, like romantically or whatnot, it's about, if there's a fight, does this mean that you're going to leave the room, proverbially speaking, because this one time was difficult, right? It's about setting those expectations and boundaries and being like, this is what will and will not work for me. And it's also understanding that no one is bound to you. Like I get super excited and hopeful, in hopeful energy and about things. And sometimes that can feel like, oh, I'm a bit sad because this thing didn't work out necessarily, right? But then it's also like you have to understand that if the values don't click, like if it's not going to gel, even with projects and clients where you were like, oh, I really wanted to work with that person. Sometimes it just doesn't work, and that's for the best, right? And then sometimes it does, and it is amazing. So this is really me rambling about this because it feels important to this tent of pentacles. I mean, like you've got lots. This 10 of Pentacles and the okay, what the heck is this? All right, the 10 of Pentacles and the Magician energy here, right? Like this. Understanding what you value. And I think that's a fundamental component, right? That sort of March Madness chart, thinking about values in that way, because not all of them are going to be important all the time, because not all of them have the same need to be prioritized. There's a few that'll probably be in the middle, but then after that, there's ones adjacent to it that can sometimes pull us off the path, right? So clarifying the Ace of Wands and the Six of Wands here is the Ace of Cups and the High Priestess, which makes me smile because I was just talking about romance and love. And then, wha-bam, out comes your intuitive guidance that there may be something like that unfolding for you. It could be related to work stuff, 4444. It could be related to like work stuff in terms of projects that you're working on. I'm also seeing that there's a way that this inspiration versus like this leadership versus management idea here is gonna, I think that that's related to relationship in some kind of way, or the lessons that you learn or are learning right now in these projects are going to unlock something about more effective just meaning that it's more meaningful and fulfilling in your relationships. And the Four of Cups and the Nine of Swords, Spirit, can you give me some clarification here on how we're moving away from this, if this is something that we still need to learn from? I just heard 7th house and I don't know why. 7th house. It could be the Venus energy in the High Priestess. That's more Empress. Why am I hearing Venus in 7th house? Interesting. The High Priestess is the moon energy, which is more Cancerian and Piscean energy. 6 of Wands again. So I think that there's this sense of victory over it. There's a sense that you're overcoming this like imbalance. The healing. And the 10 of Cups and the Magician. So I think that this is you kind of, healing patterns and healing imbalances is great. It's one thing. But then sorry if that was a bit loud. But then what we kind of get into here is we get into this situation or place where we just assume that it's healed, and I'm seeing that there's this sense of victory, but understanding and respecting the fact that building in breaks is part of the ongoing healing of this. Building in breaks is part of the ongoing healing so that you can reflect and say, am I in this pattern or not? Like, am I in this space or not? And I'm also getting this idea specific to relationships where like you connect with your partner once a month or something along those lines, and you just have a very frank and honest conversation about how you've been supporting each other and how you felt in the connection. And I mean, I'm not one to really overthink things like that. Like, I don't like to have like, let's have like a spreadsheet about, all of these things. Spreadsheets are wonderful, but not that way in relationships necessarily, and still giving enough freedom to it for it to breathe, but just kind of connecting that month and being like, hey, was there something that, what happened this month and for like the us and whatnot, and is this something that it has been working? What hasn't been working for communication? How did you feel seen? How did I feel seen? How are we giving to each other? And is there something that we can do moving forward that will help that? Is it needed? What do we need to do more of? And it's not even really difficult. It's just a different way of doing relationship, because it's putting some more thought into it, because you want to tend to that 10 of Pentacles. You want to tend to that garden, right? And I think that's part of this 10 of Cups and manifesting here is even with projects, like we do that with work stuff. Like if it's a project, we have our hands in it very, very like dirt in, like our hands are in the dirt, our hands are in the earth, right? When we're working on projects, and yet we treat our relationships like they're just like it totally different. Like we don't show up in ways all the time, at least not for everybody. But I think that there's this cultural expectation that we have our hands so like into work that we do, but we don't pay the same attention to relationships. And I'm not saying that we need like, project management, flow charts and all of this stuff. Like you don't need a SWOT analysis of your relationship, right? Like you could probably figure that out as you date someone and integrate your own boundaries and negotiate with them. I'm just talking about connecting in terms of a long-term relationship and saying, hey, how is this working? And how is this not working? And you're the person, like you're my significant other. You're the, you are the chosen one, like to be a little bit facetious, but like, right? So how are we giving to one another, and how are we ensuring that there's a foundation that things will last? And I tend to communicate like clearly when I'm in positions that it flows, right? Like when I'm with someone or friends and whatnot, communicating happens pretty easily. With that though, what I'm saying is that it's like that I'm getting this idea that there's, with the Four of Cups, the Nine of Swords, the Six of Wands, and then the Four of Swords is really I'm feeling this sense that it's taking more work than you thought. And that, like, the Four of Cups is like that feeling of boredom. And that's really what we're unearthing here. We're uncovering is that this process perhaps took longer than you thought it would. And it's not that it's boring you, but you're like, oh, right. That's what commitment means. Like, of course it did. That's right. And that's what commitment is committing to, what are you committing to, right? The nature of it. So I don't know. I feel like there's this 10 of Cups magician where you're like, oh, this is what happiness is like. Like, you're leaning into it, but just be mindful of the fact that, there's, Piscean and Neptune energy of the, like, slow enlightenment. It's dawning on you. It's dawning on you. Spirit, can I get some clarification on this balance that's coming in to really kind of, I'm hearing restructure the foundation. Queen of Pentacles, yep. Restructure the foundation, indeed. I think this is you. This is about your confidence too. So this is almost like your sense of security within yourself and about yourself to bring in on the split 10 of Pentacles and 9 of Cups, to bring in this like stable, secure, emotionally fulfilling energy. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Spirit. Wheel of Fortune. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there because I think that's, I just heard, that's all, folks. So, we ended on the wheel here and now we're ending on the Wheel of Fortune here as well. So it's almost like that answers the question of like, what is the big meaning behind this? This is you restructuring your foundation internally, and it's going to show up externally. Balancing things internally, and it's going to show up in that way. So this is a long ass reading so far. So I'm going to dive into the Miracles Now deck by Gabrielle Bernstein. Spirit, can I get some messages for my creative collective for April 7th, please? I love my food. My food loves me. I let go and allow the universe to do her thing. Oh, I love that card. I used to have this on my vision board. So when I think about food in this context, I think about what nourishes your soul as well. I love my food and my food loves me. That happens when you align what you're putting into your body and doing with your energy, when you align that with what's important to you. So I think that this is a practice of learning to let go while also balancing what you're doing to manifest in your life and what you're doing in manifesting in terms of drawing in energy in a way that's constructive and helpful for you, and prioritizing your what's important to you. So this is the Notes from the Universe on Love and Connection deck by Mike Dooley. So I'm just going to pull from that. Spirit, can I get some messages from my creative collective for April 7th, please? Thank you so much. Whoa. Earlier disappointments were just rehearsal for the great stuff coming your way. That almost strikes me as Neptune energy. Earlier disappointments were just rehearsal for the great stuff coming your way. Never regret love. No matter how blind, it improved your vision. No matter how foolish, it made you wiser. And no matter how generous, it made you more. Hubba hubba, the universe. So I think that's kind of a call to understand that if you were in this like Ace of Wands in reverse, hesitation about moving forward, and hesitant about ideas, there's a way that it's sort of like, it prepares you because it's starting from experience, right? That's what that means. That's starting from experience. Most people are just trying to survive. And I think that may have been energy that you were in. Like, I get that you may have just been trying to get by, right? Like, I just want to get to the end of the day when I can finish, when I can clock out and just go home and, put on PJ pants or put on stretchy pants and just bleh. But like, what if there's more to your life than that? Like, what if you're here for something more? And I would invite you to consider that in the context of all of this beautiful creative energy here and the expansion of Jupiter, right? Like, really consider that, because that's, again, Sagittarian energy of what it is that drives you and your philosophy for life, what you believe about the world and what's possible for you. So just remember, most people are so beguiled by your charm, awed by your confidence, and inspired by your choices. They simply forget to say thank you, please, and I love you as often as they feel the urge. Let's not be one of those people. Yeah. Most people are just trying to survive. So, my wonderful creative collective, that is your reading for April 7th. I hope that it resonated. If it did, please like and subscribe. It helps me to grow the channel and to continue to do this, which I happen to love. So, on that note, there are other ways you can connect with me between the daily readings. There's also monthly creative forecasts and related to moons and all that fun stuff. So do check out those playlists. And if this is where we part, though, I hope that you have a wonderful day ahead, morning, noon, or night, whenever this finds you on the time-space continuum. I hope you're in the midst of a good one. Take care.